Macross Shooting Insight has made its way to both physical and digital storefronts across Japan. This multi-dimensional shooting game promises a completely new, unique story spanning across multiple Macross anime series. Now, does developer Kaminari Games deliver? Now, more importantly, is it fun and is it worth your money? Well, that's exactly what we're here to talk about in this review. Let's go ahead and get into it. Danny from the Famicast here. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Sound off in the comments down below, and we may read it out on our bi-weekly show called the Famicast. As always, you can also check out this review in written form over on our website, thefamicast.com. Today, though, we're taking a look at Macross Shooting Insight on the Switch in this in-depth review. Generally speaking, developer Kaminari Games does allow players to experience this multi-dimensional shooting game in Shooting Insight. Now, stages offer horizontal and vertical shooting, as well as this 360-degree option here too. The stages themselves are made up of 3 parts, often mixing it up like these 3 gameplay styles. A 4th gameplay style is also here, in a handful of stages throughout the experience. This puts players up close behind, kind of like the chicken walkers form, for kind of like some Star Fox style play. It's kind of similar to the 360-degree option, except for, well, you can only see from behind the ship there. Now, generally speaking, I really enjoyed the gameplay here. However, I did find that this behind-the-shoulder Guardian or Chicken Walker sections do feel a little bit finicky. Given that the camera is so close to the craft, it was a little bit difficult to judge distances of the incoming enemy fire. Now, regardless of perspective, inputs, by and large, remain the same throughout the experience. Now, by default, shooting your primary weapon is done with R, and A initiates a roll or like a dodge. Y launches an assist attack, and the right stick is used for lock-on missiles. Now, the assist attack, this is something that can't be used indefinitely, as there is this gauge at the bottom of the screen that you'll need to keep an eye on while you're playing. Now, the 360-degree levels turn the game essentially kind of like into almost like a twin-stick shooter. And although lock-on missiles are still assigned to the right stick, holding R and also moving the right stick around at the same time will allow for shooting in any direction here. So I think control-wise, these were all really unique, and I think they felt really smooth to play. Being a shooting game, the stages are of course filled with a variety of enemies, as well as bonus items that can be collected. Now, the latter come in the form of satellite jammers and also ammo crates. Now, destroying these gives the players a boost in a few different ways. So some of these will open up different buffs and stuff like that for your ship. Now, additionally, simply taking out enemies and collecting these fragments that they leave behind will increase your firepower. There's a gauge on the right side of the screen that you'll see go up as you collect these. Now, avoiding enemy projectiles and attacks can also increase your score multiplier. Now, basically, the better you play, the more advantages you get in the gameplay. Now, multiple levels of difficulty are available in Shooting Insight, so if you're a grizzled shmup veteran or a scrubby newbie idiot like me, I think you can make this game as easy or as hard as you like. An option for auto recovery is also available here as well. Now, this makes the game quite a bit easier, and I think this could be a good way to ensure that you get to see all the stages that the game has to offer, no matter your skill level. Now, normal itself, just as a difficulty level, I think it can be quite challenging. And, as of right now, the very hard mode, like the online rankings, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, basically they don't show anybody that has actually cleared the game in the Switch version. So that might say something about the game's difficulty level. There are 6 pilots and Valkyries to choose from here, each representing main characters from their respective places in the Macross series. Now, oddly enough, the English version will only feature 5, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. Now, here are the pilots that are available in the Japanese version. You have Isamu Daisen, Gomlin Kizaki, Shin Kudo, Alto Saotome, Hayate Imoman, and Hikaru Ichijo, aka Rick Hunter. Now, each of the pilots and fighters have different attributes for the following: HP, attack, speed, lock range, lock on, like the number of missiles, missile damage, and rolling. Now, as a result, while each fighter does have the same capabilities, the way they handle, attack, and take damage are subtly different. Now, the most obvious differences can be seen before making your selection is like the range of the weapon initiated with R, like your regular shot, and also the number of lock-on missiles. You can see that as like a kind of like a preview of how it's going to be before you start the level. Now, having these differences, this makes it so you have to take on the stages and swarms of enemies differently with each character. Now, laser attacks, that are more spread out, and the more lock-on missiles you have, that makes it easier to hit enemies, yes, but the firepower is generally weaker. And then vice versa. I mean, if you have like, less of a range or less of like a width on your gun, it's going to be really powerful. I think, overall the gameplay feels pretty balanced across most of the pilots. The variety of gameplay is enjoyable, and I think it's pretty easy to grasp. I think my only complaint is that the game is a little bit busy visually. Now, how does this mix in with the gameplay? Well, all the stages feature like moving backgrounds or backgrounds that sometimes show moving larger enemy ships or other elements like space debris and all sorts of other stuff. Now, add on to this pink glittering filter that comes on basically when you're synced up with the songstresses, when you destroy enough jammers, and like basically you can like sync with the songstresses and you can hear the songs like while you're playing the game. Now, visually, this makes it so it's really difficult to see the enemies and incoming projectiles. I think these effects look cool, but they can occasionally lead to accidental deaths. Several different modes are featured in Shooting Insight. Now, from the main menu, players have access to gameplay, gallery, ranking, and option. Now, delving into each of these offers more options. So under gameplay, players can try out story, arcade, rival battle, boss rush, and stage select in that order. Now, story mode puts players through the game's 11 stages with different story elements and conversations, basically depending on the pilot that you choose. Now, the story being told here is completely new and basically made specifically for Shooting Insight. Now, while honestly I'm not super familiar with the source material for any of these Macross series, guilty confession, I've only ever really watched Robotech back in the day. There seem to be some fun elements to this, for fans. Now, just to note, all the other gameplay modes outside of story remain locked until you clear that mode at least once. Now, I can understand the decision for some of the modes to be locked, but like arcade mode, I think that should have just been open from the start. Now, speaking of arcade, that takes basically all the dialogue and character interactions out of story mode just to put players directly into the action. So yeah, that's what that is. Pretty easy to understand. Gallery, though, this is the home for like a number of different artwork, information, and other stuff that you'll unlock throughout your playthrough. The sheer number of things to unlock here can be the driving factor for some people to come back and keep playing, because yeah, there's really a lot of stuff here. Some of these are locked to specific modes and stuff like that, so this could encourage players to try out everything that the game has to offer. Rival Battles puts one of our 6 pilots against rival characters spanning across the Macross series that's on offer here. Now, opponents are unlocked upon clearing the story mode with the available characters. Now, these little battles, they're pretty short, and I would say they're essentially boss encounters. They are quite challenging and do offer, I don't think they offer any difficulty options here either. And battles themselves can be over in less than a minute, sometimes less than that, 30 seconds or something like that. However, losing or choosing to replay the mission like right after that, you're going to have to go all the way back out to like the selection screen for this and do this. Well, that probably doesn't sound like a really big deal, but it does take a little bit of time for all those screens to load before you can get back into the action. Given the inevitability of death in this mode and just how quick some of these things can go, I think a quick restart here would have been a good idea. I think boss rush and stage select are pretty self-explanatory. However, the rankings area, or like the leaderboards, believe it or not, need maybe a little bit of explanation. Now, of course, this is the place to be if you want to check out the top scores from around the world or the country. Now, just as a bit of a heads up, because I don't think I've even said this yet, players are actually able to save not only their high scores after clearing stages or dying in a blaze of glory, but you're also able to save a replay of how you performed in the level. Now, these can be downloaded by other players directly from the rankings page and then viewed in the gallery. Now, if you didn't think that was enough, Kaminari Games added another option to actually play stages in almost every mode alongside of like a ghost character that would kind of represent these performances. Now, you won't see any firepower from the ghost or anything like that, but you can see the path that they took while playing through the stage like by yourself. So that was pretty cool. Now, if you want to play the stage with one of these ghosts, you simply have to choose it from amongst your saved replays before entering a stage. Now, saving replays, this can be a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with Japanese, but basically if you die, or if you clear the entire game on one go, basically choosing quit will allow you to choose whether or not you want to save your own replay. I mentioned this a little bit earlier too, but leaderboards are not very full as of right now on the Switch version. I mean, this either means that people are playing the game with auto recovery on, which actually disables the ability to rank in, or just not many people bought the game at this point. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, heck, I'm ranked like in the top 20 and like in easy mode. Like, I'm not even that good of a player, but if you want to like play this game to rank in or something like that, hey, I mean, now's your chance. Macross Shooting Insight is a pretty sharp-looking game. Now, the presentation and story elements use artwork from their respective shows and fit the overall Macross aesthetic pretty well. The game itself features 3D ships on top of 2D scrolling planes. Now, these backgrounds are often filled with a lot of things such as asteroids, larger enemy ships, space debris, and more. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think these background elements can be a little bit distracting, but I mean, I think they look cool at least. Now, in terms of performance, aside from some slowdown after finishing off like some bosses where it doesn't really matter because you're not going to die or anything like that, the game has a pretty smooth frame rate and rarely, if ever, skips a beat in both handheld and on the TV. The music and audio here are definitely strong points of Shooting Insight. Several songs taken straight out of the various anime are included in this game. Now, these play throughout the levels, which I found to be a nice touch. The one thing I found disappointing was the lack of a fully voiced story mode. Sure, there is some spoken dialogue sprinkled in here and there, but things are mainly pretty silent. There are some repeated short-liners from the characters through combat, but that can be a little bit grating. Now, originally, Shooting Insight was going to see a simultaneous worldwide release with both the Japanese and English support here. Now, after delay here in Japan, the English release was quietly changed to be determined for the release date as the game neared its March 14th release. Now, a day before that, France-based developer and publisher Red Art Games announced that they would be handling the English release of Shooting Insight outside of Japan. Now, although the Japanese version of the game does feature 6 pilots, the English version will only feature 5. Red Art Games hasn't confirmed this, but I think it's rather obvious to me that their version of the game are going to be nixing Hikaru Ichijo, aka Rick Hunter, and Minmay from the game, given the complicated relationship with Harmony Gold and Big West. Now, this isn't just as simple as deleting the characters from the main key art of the game, which is something that they've already done on the English website for months, but, both characters, I think they play a pretty big role in the story mode as they are mixed in with and interact with other characters. I mean, at the same time, Red Art's blog post announcement said that this game will feature 6 stories, despite the fact that the game is only going to feature 5 pilots. So I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of changes are made to this to make it work in the English version. Now, as for the Japanese in this version of the game, menu navigation shouldn't be too hard, but story elements will definitely prove difficult if you don't have a good grasp on the language or anything like that. I mean, if you just want to play this as a shooter and you don't care about the story, I think you're going to be just fine. Now, if you pick up or plan on picking up the Japanese SKU, or like the Japanese version of this game, with the hope of playing it in English sometime later, I would really advise against that. Given the likelihood that this release outside of Japan will see some very significant changes and a different publisher, I'd venture to guess that they will not be cross-listed on the Switch storefronts in multiple regions. Now, this basically has happened in the past with some games. For example, Japanese releases on the Switch of Persona 5, Hyrule Warriors, and a handful of other indie games. They only feature Japanese language options on the Japanese eShop, despite full English localizations being available in other places. So, yeah, if you're going to pick this game up and want to play it in English, I would suggest waiting. Macross Shooting Insight is a decent shooter that may grab the attention of gamers with its multifaceted control options. Now, of course, the Macross license will also be a big draw for others. However, this might leave those fans wishing for something a little bit more grandiose. Now, if you're looking for a series-defining game using this license, I think you're setting yourself up for a huge disappointment here. But if you're in the market for a fun shooter featuring a license that you enjoy, or just something that you think looks cool, this might actually be for you. Now, as always, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to drop this video a like. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe. We've got tons of podcasts, video reviews, looks at Japanese games like this, and a whole lot more. Again, this is Danny from the Famicast. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.